Hey, Dooberteers, welcome back to the show. I'm really excited today that we get to talk to Esther. Esther's got a long history in animal welfare, over 30 years that she's been involved in all sorts of different things. So, Esther, welcome to the show.
Thank you. Thanks for having me.
So, start off by telling us a little bit about who you are and, what you're doing now.
Ah, well, now I'm so-called retired, in quotes, for the last 15 years, which is hard to believe. But it turns out I'm still working. I think when I first started doing this kind of work, I thought in 10 years I'll have it done. So I started in 1990 with work on Spay Neuter issue, and I figured by 2000 I'd be done. And 2000 came and went, and here we are at 2026,
Yeah.
and I'm back at work again. Yeah, but it's unofficial, it's volunteer, and but it's not resolved. But it's come a long way in
I
those
was going
years.
to say, talk to us about that. I mean, what made you get into this? How did you get started over 30 years ago?
Well, I can go back even further for the roots of caring about animals, but 30 years ago, or the 1990ish, I went to the shelter in Bridgeport, Connecticut, and that's a mistake. Sure enough, I saw this wonderful cat. I called him Buddha because he was so serene. He's a black and white kitty, just, just so comfortable in his little skin and all that. And I already had 5 cats at home, and that was about as much as I could handle. So I asked the people in charge if they would hold him for a couple of weeks, and I would definitely find him a home. And that's when I found out just how hard it is to find a home for a cat.
Sure.
And sure enough, I came back a few days later, and had been euthanized. And that was really the fire in the belly, as we used to call it, because what I realized is this is not just a local problem. I started locally. I asked my vet if he would spay his cats, that I would refer to him for 50% off, just to see if that could work. And he said, yeah, I'll do that. And that was the first vet in our network. And then I got on fire, and I was working out of my basement alone. And I called just hundreds of vets around, not vets, I called hundreds of shelters around the country to see if they could recommend vets that would do something like Dr. Brown was doing, cut the cost. We were looking for affordable because I knew from the beginning that it was because it was too expensive that a lot of people didn't fix their cats. And because they didn't fix their cats, the shelters were full. And they were full at that time. They were euthanizing 12 million cats a year, or not cats and dogs a year back in 1990. And so that was where we started. Long story short, it worked. With other words, there was no national organization back then that focused exclusively on companion animals. We had PETA and Henry Spear was working on lab animals, and Alex Hirschhoff was working on factory farms. I mean, these were all things going, but I couldn't find an organization that was just exclusively for this. And given the size of the problem, I thought there really needs to be such a program or a plan or whatever. So I got going on it. And as I say, by 2010, when I retired, the numbers were down from 12 million down to 3 million. So that's an 80% drop. So we knew what worked. And I figured, well, I can retire and go to Maine. I can have some fun now. And I did. I had a lot of fun for about 2 years. And then I started getting word back about how all the problems that shelters were having. And evidently, little by little, the foundations were no longer funding Spay Neuter. And this was pretty horrifying because I know Petco Foundation used to give us a good chunk every year to help subsidize for the people who had, let's say, 80 cats and they couldn't fix them all, of course. So basically, that's when I started United Spay Alliance up here in Maine in 2015. And really, we had to start over again because really a lot of the awareness that had been raised years ago wasn't there anymore. And people were listening to people who were telling them that you can adopt your way out of this. Just focus on adoption and rescue, and you'll be fine. It doesn't work, because dogs multiply 15 times as fast as humans and cats multiply 45 times as fast as humans. That's according to Dr. Jeff Young, Rocky Mountain vet. I don't know if you know him or not, but
yeah,
that's the numbers I got from him. So how are you going to adopt your way out if you've got that kind of odds? There's no way to do that. So it was getting upsetting, and I realized I had to do something. And so we started United Spay Alliance, and have found the most incredible people for our board. One of them is Peter Marsh. I don't know if you know Peter, but he's an expert on overpopulation. And Dr. Mackey, Marvin Mackey, who was one of the experts and icons in spaying quickly. So anyway, we had a really good team, and we're still struggling though, because really right now the narrative has been what I would call hijacked, and basically instead of you reduce the intake, you reduce the number by spay neuter, not by just saying go away. We can't take you in. We don't have room.
Right.
You reduce the numbers that are coming into the shelters, and then you have more chance. And I wrote this little thing that I don't know if I hope you'll like this. It said if fewer cats and dogs were born, we could have behavior classes instead of burnout. We could have TNR teams instead of kitten season. We could have calm environments at the shelter over chaos. And we would have spay clinics instead of warehouses and hoarders. And that just seems real clear to me. And the people who come to us, it's clear to them. But the general public has been kind of hypnotized to think that you can adopt your way out, and you can't. And so right now we're up against a dearth of support in the general community. The funders are not helping, and we're doing the best we can, but we're working with a very, very slim budget. So a lot of our people are doing volunteer work,
Yeah. No, I mean,
I'm
you and I
thinking,
talked in the pre-show, right? I mean, TNR is not sexy, right? Spay and neuter
that's
is
right.
not sexy, right? I mean, there's nothing exciting about it. I mean, I've been to a high volume TNR clinic and I'm a little bit squeamish, right? So, it's not something that like adopting this cute little puppy that was brought in and
Yes.
the wonderful stories that you see on social media. So I totally get your point that it's not front and center, but it is the thing that's going to get us out of this overpopulation problem.
I worry a little bit. They have something called access to care now, and that's supposed to provide the medical money. But the problem with that is that a dog or cat dental, for that matter, is $2,000, which would spay 100 cats.
Hmm.
Or maybe, no, how many cats? Not 100 cats. My math is poor. It would spay 20 cats, but in turn, 120 kittens wouldn't be born, and there wouldn't be born. So if we put the money for access to care into spay neuter, great. But I think it can go into dentals and other kinds of things that happen to animals when there's too many of them. So at some point, we have to stop and say, okay, do you know that story about up the river?
No.
So probably not saying it right. There's a story about there was people standing along the bank of a river, and these dead babies and dying babies were coming through on the current. And everyone's running into the river to try to grab them and pull them out of the water. And one person starts walking up the river stream, and they said, "Why are you leaving? Why are you going away?" And he said, "I want to find out why these babies are in the river.
Yeah, in the first place.
Why are they even there?" And if people start thinking about that and asking themselves, let's see if we can't stop this at its source. It's like if you have a broken, what did that call, where the water comes through, broken plumbing downstairs, and you're using a bucket and
Bailing it out. Yeah, you'll bail out
mop it up. Right? And if you don't turn off the water, that happened to me in real life one time. It was upstairs, and the toilet tank was broken, and fortunately, I realized I could shut off the water. So we have to have a shift in animal welfare back to stopping the process at the beginning, and that's public health for pets. That's what we call it.
No, I think that's very smart. And I was surprised when you said a cat reproduces 45 times faster than, I mean, I've heard, in Florida, right, we have kitten season literally all year round, right? Because the weather is just nice enough. And, it's very easy for a pair of cats to spawn off offspring and they just keep
3 times a year.
Growing. Yeah. Yeah. So
this was Dr. Jeff from Rocky Mountain Vet who told me those statistics. So that's where I got that from. Even if it were a little less, it would still be overwhelming. And it tells you right away that you cannot adopt your way out. So you got to start thinking upstream. And I really wish that the narrative could change. I don't know how to do it. Maybe you can help by having this on your show. Obviously, the people that watch your show may come forward and get more involved in that kind of work.
Esther, I'm curious, I mean, leading United Spay Alliance and all the work you've done, I mean, how do you motivate the team? I mean, it seems like the problem is so insurmountable, right? Where do we begin? How do you Motivate yourself? How do you motivate your team to keep going?
I don't know what's going on in myself on that front. It's there. Maybe it was genetic. I don't know where it came from, but it's still going strong at my age. So, but I think when they come to us, as they realize that light goes on and they say, we can't handle this anymore. It's just too much. This kitten season over. And then we say, well, we have a program called Fixed by Five. Years ago, I thought, how come there are all these cats being born? And then I realized that the traditional vet, what do they call it? Advice, recommendation is to fix the cats at 6 months or later after her first litter. And I thought, well, that's where we have to start. And indeed, it was back in 2015 in Orlando at the North American Vet Conference. And that's down there every year.
Yep.
Joan Miller, who was president of the Cat Fanciers Association, and I put together a team, a roundtable of veterinarians to make recommendations. And they did. We had 4 hours from 1 to 4 p.m. on the 15th. And in that 4 hours, these very highly trained veterinarians came together on 5 points, and it's on our website. The recommendations when to spay and neuter, because we realized that even if they spayed and neutered the cats 1 month earlier, 4 weeks earlier, that would negate a lot of litters. And I was shocked that nobody had come up with that before me. I mean, there's all these big organizations that are out there and have been for 50, 100 years, but they never came to this. Somehow, maybe that was just an inspiration somehow that if we could do this, and it still hasn't fully happened, but we have the Fix by Five campaign, and Brianna, our executive director, has done a great job of creating a media kit that can be downloaded from United Spay Alliance's website, and people all over can become their own leaders in their own community. That's how it has to happen. It's not that I'm inspiring them. I think they get inspired. They get frustrated. That's what got me into this in the first place. It wasn't so much inspiration from somebody else. It was just frustrated. This can't be the best we can do for our animals, And what would work better? Well, one thing that would work better, you fix them at 5 months or 4 months or 3 months or 2 months, but fixed by 5. And that can make a difference, but very few veterinarians in the private sector are doing it yet. That's one thing we found out by a poll by I think it's PetSmart Charities recently.
Yeah. Why do you think that is? Why do you think private vets have jumped on board yet?
Well, 2 things. I think, one is the sort of conservative things. It's the way it's always been done. So that's that. But the other thing that's very big is that the vet schools are not teaching this. There's like 25 vet schools. They're not teaching their students to spay by 5 months. That's not recommended practice there. Sometimes they say, well, we don't tell them when to spay and neuter. Well, yes, they do by what they teach, So we have to get the vet schools involved. And there may be some way that you or somebody else that's listening to you may figure out a way to do that.
Yeah.
I think that would be a big step forward if we get much more participation. That obviously the shelter people that work closely with rescue animals and stuff realize you have to spay them young. But I guess a lot of the vets never see the stuff that we see, right?
Yeah.
So they don't realize.
So Esther, if you could go back in time and give your younger self advice, what would you give? What would you tell her?
I guess it's just don't give up. I think sometimes that's what keeps people going till something good happens. I mean, there's plenty of times where it would have been much easier to just give up.
Sure.
And ironic, late in life, I'm still not willing to totally give up. Sometimes you feel really frustrated and you're like, this isn't working, what am I doing? Go have a little fun instead. But really, for me, fun is to find someone that is going to open a spay neuter clinic and says, how do we do it? And then we can tell them how to do it. So to me, that keeps me going. And meeting good people, there's some amazing people. Group in Tennessee, under Spay Tennessee, group in Atlanta. And I don't want to start naming names because there's so many of them, but there are people all over the country that reach out and say, I want to do this. How can I do it? I can't find a vet. Can you try to help me find a vet? Or, can we train vets? Yes, we can train vets to do these more efficient methods. So it's wonderful now to have a small group of people around me, like Stacy LeBaron and Bree Myers and Sherry Storms, just to name 3, that are, working on this too. It would be pretty impossible to do it alone. I mean, it would be hopeless, but you have to build a team, and that's what we've been doing. And I'm hoping by talking with you on this show, we'll find some more people that feel this way and that will come forward. And I think that's how it's worked, is that people have come forward and said, yeah, I think that makes sense. I want to do that too. How do I do it? And then we're glad to help.
Yeah.
I don't know if that answers your question.
It does. I think, as you know, every community is very different, right? We're
Yes.
similar problems, but it's still different in the community. And what I really love about what you're doing is you're inspiring others to say, we want to do this for our community. And you're saying, great, we're not doing it to you. We'll give you the resources. We'll teach you. We'll show you, right?
Mhm.
But you know your community. And these programs
Yes, that's
work
right.
best when they're operated from within their community.
Right. Because a little town in Arizona is very different from Philadelphia, and all these places need the work. They all need it. So yeah, we knew that from the start. That what happens in Rhode Island is real different from what happens in California. So be flexible, and we just work with the people when they're ready to start. Because that's really the thing. What I hope changes is the narrative. It's just like people understand that we're not going to get anywhere until we start preventing litters. That's just the cornerstone of everything. And
yeah, when I used to do a lot of transport on Doobert, we would talk about transport as a tool, but it's not
yes,
the
yes,
solution. You can't
yes,
transport your way out of the problem, but
yes.
it was a tool to help them get on top of some of the overpopulation or challenges that they had. But I was very clear to say, like, this is not the solution, right? This is not the end all be all.
Right, right. It gives them a chance to retrench, or whatever the word is, get
Yeah.
going on the Spay Neuter thing, because that takes a while to ramp up.
Yeah.
In the first year, you'll see a little difference, but there are places even in Tennessee, and I know there are places in Connecticut, where once they got going on a really good spay program, there weren't a lot of kittens too many kittens anymore, too many puppies. There weren't dead animals on the side of the road anymore, because the number was just shrinking. And that's the only way that it's ever going to get solved. And like you said, it's not exciting, and most people don't want to talk about it or think about it or watch it, but the fact is that that's what's going to make all the difference. And just focus in on that, and laser like focus in on that, and you'll see good things happen. Because especially now that it's down to only 3 million instead of 12 million, there's a chance. I had thought at the time I retired that within the next 5 years there will never be zero euthanasia.
Right.
And I used to go around asking people, what do you think the bottom line will be? And it was interesting that most people said there will probably always be about 1 million animals that will need to be euthanized for one reason or another. It might be medical or behavioral or whatever.
Sure.
So it will never go to totally zero. So save them all is just not realistic either. But almost all of them who are veterinarians, it will probably be around 1 million. So we got really close to it. And now it's turning back up again. I think the numbers are coming up, but we're not able to tell because the people that are keeping the statistics are not on this wavelength. I don't think.
The the data doesn't lie, right? But it's also
depends
hard to
on
come
who.
by.
And who's holding the data,
Right.
and what's their slant.
Yeah, right. Because you can tell a story, right? You can, as you know, getting the data, a lot of shelters don't have a lot of technology to capture it. And,
Yep.
so is it being reported? Is it consistent? There's so many different variabilities in that you think in our age 2026, right, that we
Yes.
have real-time access to data, but we're just not there yet.
No, exactly. So that's a frustration for you probably too, but you're working on that.
Yeah, no, that's, me, I'm a data guy. I'm a technology guy. To me, I say these are solvable problems, right? Big companies have had these problems for years. And so of course, technology is helping to solve that. So to me, animal welfare is just another type of industry. It's another type of company, and we can help them solve that as well. So I'm hopeful. I'm very hopeful that with advancements in AI and all these other things that we're going to be able to get on top of some of these things and really try to say, like, what is the data showing us and what can we improve on?
Yes, yes.
So Esther, as we start coming to the end of the show here, I want to switch to our lightning round of questions. We're going to ask some questions just to get to know a little bit more about you, right?
Okay.
Really simple questions. Okay, you ready?
We'll see, I suppose.
I think I know the answer to this first one, but I'm going to ask it anyway. Puppy breath or kitten purrs? Which do you prefer?
And purr.
Of course. Are you an early bird or a late night owl?
early bird.
Okay, so you're up nice and
Yeah.
early.
Yes.
If your pets wrote a review of you as a pet parent, how many stars do you think you'd get?
Out of what? Out of 10 or
Out of
5?
five, out of five
Out of
stars.
5? I think he'd give me a 4. He likes me. He likes me. What he doesn't, I don't feed him often enough. I only feed him 3 times a day, so he's working on 5 or 6 times a day, and that loses me a star.
All right, that's fair. I like
Yeah,
that.
yeah, yeah.
What's one non-animal related hobby that keeps you sane?
Walking in the woods. I
Nice.
guess they call that hiking.
Yeah, getting
Hiking.
outdoors.
Yeah.
And then my last question for you is, what do you want your legacy to be?
Oh, I would love it if my legacy were such that there were just no more companion animals born. If I could just be part of that, I'd be very happy. If they were just, enough really good homes, not just homes, but good homes to go around for all of them that were born. That would be good. I have a lot of things I would like, but I chose to focus on this issue, and that's what I'd have to say for that.
Well, Esther, you've done so much in your career, and the fact that you're still doing this in retirement and you still have so much passion for this is really infectious. Like, I'm very inspired just listening and talking to you, and I want to go do more. So, thank you for everything you've done.
Well, I thank you very much for what you're doing and have done and will do. And thank you for having me on today. I appreciate it.
All right.
Thank you,
Thanks,
Chris.
Esther.
Thank you. Bye now.